Hi, I'm Larisa from the DIY and home decor blog, timeonourhands.com. And today I'm going to make some soy candles for Mother's Day, and I'll walk you through the process. So this is what you're going to need. You're going to need some containers to pour your candles into. I have these really pretty containers from Candle Science. This is a mercury gold, and this is an iridescent yellow. They hold 8.5 ounces of wax, so that's a medium-sized candle. You're also going to need some soy wax. So I have a big bag of Eco Soya CB135. You're going to need some wicks that go with your wax, so you'll have to do a little research to see what kind of wicks will fit your containers and be best for the wax you're using. I have LX20, 6-inch pre-tabbed, so these work really well with the Eco Soya. You're also going to need a pitcher, so something to melt your wax in. If you don't have a wax pitcher, you could potentially use a large glass measuring cup, like a Pyrex measuring cup. And you'll need a saucepan to boil the water, so this will act like a double boiler. So you'll just put a little bit of water in and then put the pitcher with your wax in. You're also going to need a candy thermometer, a digital candy thermometer. This will tell you when your wax is at the right temperature for adding the fragrance oil and also for pouring. You're going to need fragrance oils, so any flavor that you want. The guidelines are to use 6 to 10% of fragrance oil based on the amount of wax. So typically I do about 1 ounce per pound of wax. You're also going to need something to stick your wicks onto your containers with. They do sell wick stickers. They're great. I usually use them, but I happen to be out right now. So I just have some adhesive dots. You could also use a hot glue gun. So these are also nice. These are wick holders. So you put them on your container once the wax is in there and it keeps them in place. But you could easily use anything else. You could use a knife. You could use chopsticks. Just anything that will sort of keep the wick in place. And then finally, you will need a digital scale to measure your fragrance oil and your wax. And that's it. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is wick our containers. So this is really easy. You just take your wicks and you're going to put it right in the center of your container. So these glue dots are not the most ideal things, but these will work. Again, the wick stickers work really great, and hot glue guns work great, but it's not that vital. You just need to get it stuck to the bottom somehow. And I usually just eyeball it. I do have a wick guide that you can use, but sometimes that actually just makes it harder, in my opinion. So I'm just putting the adhesive right onto the bottom of the wick on this little metal part, and then just eyeballing the center. So then it just looks like that. And you do want your wicks taller than your container. We'll cut those off afterward. So these are having a little trouble sticking. Okay, so the containers are wicked. We're going to set those aside and we're going to start the wax going. So now we're ready to measure our wax. I already have the water in the saucepan heating up on the stove, so that'll be ready for us. So I'm just going to put my pitcher onto my digital scale and tare it to 0. Now these containers hold 8.5 ounces of wax each. So 8.5 times 4 is 34 ounces, which is 2 pounds, 2 ounces. So I'm just going to pour my wax into here. At 2 pounds, 2 ounces, which is 34 ounces. And that is how it looks. So it's pretty much It's about 3/4 of the way full in the pitcher. And now I'm just gonna put the pitcher inside this saucepan that has a little bit of water. It has about 2 inches of water. So you want enough that it will create enough heat to melt the wax, but you don't want so much that when you put the pitcher in, the water overflows. So right now the water is about 3/4 of the way up, and that's okay. It might splash a little bit. I'm heating it on high now. I'll turn it down in a little bit once it gets going. And now I'm ready to measure my fragrance oil. So I'm just gonna use a glass and again, tare it on the scale. I typically use a 10% load of fragrance oil, which is on the high side. So if you're very sensitive to smell or you like things a little more subtle, you could go to 6%, you could use 7%, 8%, 9%, 10%. 10% does make it easy on the math. So I have 34 ounces of wax. So I'm gonna need 3.4 ounces of fragrance oil. So I've got a few here. These are all garden scents for Mother's Day. And I'm gonna go with this Candle Science White Sage and Lavender. This is a really nice one. So I need 3.4 ounces. I might not have that much, but that's okay, because I'll show you what we can do. Okay, I only have 1.8 of that, but I have a similar one, rosemary and sage. So I am just going to mix them, and this is totally something you can do. Okay, I've got 3.5, 3.6. I poured a little too much, so when I pour it, I'll just leave a little bit in. So that smells really nice. So now we're gonna go back to our stove and see how our wax is doing. So it's getting to the point where it's mostly melted. So I'm gonna go ahead and attach my thermometer, which you can do from the beginning as well. So I'm just gonna let that get up to speed. And we're going to want this to get to 185 degrees. That is the temperature that we're going to want to pour our fragrance oil in and then take it off the heat. So right now it's at about 150. There are still a few chunks in there to melt, but the thermometer does take a little bit of time to get up to temperature, so that's why I put it in now. So once it reaches 185, you want to move fairly quickly. You want to take the thermometer out, remove it from the water, and then stir your fragrance oil in. So I have a little hot pad here to put the pitcher on once I take it out. Okay, so it's at 185. I'm gonna remove that, put it over here, and then add my fragrance oil. And then you just wanna stir it thoroughly for about 2 minutes. And they say 2 minutes just because by then everything should be mixed, but it's not, you don't have to do it for exactly 2 minutes. And then once you have everything mixed, put your thermometer back on, and we're gonna take that down to a temperature of 135, because that is the best temperature to pour soy wax. So it's gonna take a little bit. The wax is currently at 137.4 degrees, so it's about at the right temperature for pouring. I'm gonna give it a final stir. That raised the temperature a little bit, but as long as you're within about 5 degrees, you'll be fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the thermometer off. And then the last thing is just to pour it into these containers. So since these containers are opaque on the outside, it doesn't really matter that much how you pour. If you were to use a clear container, you'll want to pour it very steadily. Otherwise you'll see like where you're stopping and starting. So just for good practice, I'm just gonna pour this in really smoothly. And then I'm going to use my wick holder just so it stays nice and tight. And again, if it were a clear container, I wouldn't move them while it was still wet, but these, it won't matter that much because you're only going to see the top of the wax. Okay. So you just want to, these wick holders are nice. They keep things nice and tight and in place. I'm just gonna say those adhesive dots that I used did not work very well. Some of these are coming up, so use a hot glue gun or use wick stickers that are made for candles. That's my advice. Some of them are fine, but that first yellow one came loose. And I'm filling these to about a half to a quarter inch below the top. And if I have extra, which I am, I have extra in there, so I'm going to top them off a little bit more. Again, you would not want to do that if you're using a clear container. Yeah, for some reason these yellow jars are not, the wicks aren't sticking to them. But I think it'll be okay. I'm just going to put them in the right position, and when the wax hardens, it should be fine. But it's not ideal. So here they are. They are filled with the hot wax. The wicks are in. They're looking good, and now you just need to wait for them to dry. So the candles have dried enough. So the final step is just to cut the wicks. So just starting at the edge of the candle container, just cut them off like that. And then if they're not completely smooth, you can just use a blowtorch to smooth them out. And that would just make the tops look really nice. This Eco Soya wax actually turns out really smooth generally, but it still also helps to just give it a quick shot with the blowtorch. So that's all there is to it. They're pretty quick and easy to make. It's just a matter of getting the right materials. I think they turned out really great. They smell so good. So you will want to let these sit for about a week for them to cure. And that will just ensure that they smell good when they're burning as well as smell good when they're not burning. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you did, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to our channel, Time on Our Hands blog. Thanks so much.